What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actresses comes face-to-face with daytime television's most outspoken host? When a single interview question lights a fuse and turns a routine conversation into an unforgettable clash. Today, we're diving into the fiery moment that had viewers across America scrambling to call their friends, the explosive confrontation between Charlize Theron and Joy Behar that ended in one of the most dramatic walk-offs daytime TV has ever seen. Morning began like any other. The hosts of The View settled into their seats. The audience buzzed with excitement, and Charlize was welcomed as the featured guest to promote her latest film. But within 20 minutes, the cheerful celebrity chat would morph into something closer to a courtroom showdown. Joy Behar, never shy about stirring the pot, opened with her usual warmth. "Charlize, it's wonderful to have you back. You look stunning, as always." Charlize smiled politely. "Thank you, Joy. It's always interesting being here." The slight hesitation in her tone didn't go unnoticed, and Joy, sensing a story beneath the surface, pressed ahead. She asked about the film, its themes, and the heavy social justice issues at its core. Charlize's voice grew sharper as she answered. "The role challenged me to think about how we use our platforms, how we speak truth to power, and what happens when influential people choose silence when they should be speaking up." Her words carried an edge, one that seemed aimed beyond the film itself. The other hosts exchanged uneasy glances. Joy leaned in, unwilling to let the moment pass. "And I imagine, after decades in this business, you've seen plenty of people choose silence over speaking out." Charlize's eyes narrowed. "And I've also seen people speak without thinking, using their platforms irresponsibly, spreading misinformation, or making light of serious issues just for attention." The air in the studio grew tense. The audience shifted, sensing this wasn't going to be the standard daytime chat. Joy's smile thinned. "Well, most of us try to use our platforms responsibly, though I suppose we all define responsibility differently." "True," Charlize replied coolly. "Some think responsibility means playing it safe, never challenging anything. Others think it means doing the research before opening their mouths." The camera zoomed in. The tension was electric. "Are you suggesting we don't do our research?" Joy's voice rose. "I'm not suggesting anything," Charlize said smoothly. "I'm stating that, in an age where misinformation spreads faster than facts, those with platforms owe people accuracy, not just volume." Joy's eyebrows shot up. "Volume? Are you calling me loud?" "I'm calling out a pattern," Charlize countered, "where opinion is treated as fact, where complex issues are reduced to sound bites, where the goal is heat not light." The audience fell silent. Joy flushed red, her co-hosts visibly uncomfortable. "I think you're confusing passion with irresponsibility. Some of us aren't afraid to take a stand, even when it's unpopular." Charlize leaned back, calm and cutting. "And some confuse taking a stand with taking up space. There's a difference between passion and performance." "Joy." The word performative hit like a dagger. Joy faltered, then snapped back. "I've been fighting for progressive causes since before you were acting." "Fighting for them or fighting about them?" Charlize shot back. "Because from where I sit, it looks like you spend more time arguing with people who agree with you than addressing the real problems." Joy half rose from her chair, voice booming. "How dare you lecture me on this show about sacrifice? Do you have any idea what I've given up for my beliefs?" Charlize remained composed, her calm demeanor only fueling Joy's fury. "I'm not questioning your sacrifices, Joy. I'm questioning your methods. When every discussion becomes a shouting match, when anyone who disagrees is treated as an enemy, you're not building bridges, you're burning them. Maybe some bridges deserve to be burned." Joy fired back. "Maybe some views don't deserve respect or consideration." The studio was dead silent. What had started as a simple interview had now erupted into a cultural flashpoint, one that would end with a walk-off no one saw coming. Asterisk, who decides that? Charlize asked, her voice calm but edged with steel. "On what authority? What expertise do you bring beyond the ability to talk over people?" The studio was so silent you could hear the cameras humming. Joy's face flushed crimson as her hands gripped the edge of the table. "Talk over people," she echoed, her voice cracking. "I give people a platform. I ask the questions others are too afraid to ask." Charlize didn't flinch. Her expression held the faintest trace of pity. "Do you, though? Or do you ask leading questions designed to steer the answers where you want them? There's a difference between journalism and entertainment." Joy shot to her feet, her chair skidding backward. "Entertainment? You think what I do is just entertainment? I think what you do is create content." Charlize replied evenly. "Whether that content truly informs, educates, or helps. Anyone that's debatable." Whoopi Goldberg raised her hands, trying to diffuse the tension. "Ladies, maybe we should just know." Joy cut her off, eyes locked on Charlize. "I want to hear this. I want to hear how someone who makes millions pretending for a living thinks she can lecture me about substance." For the first time, Charlize's composure flickered. A flash of fire lit her eyes. "Pretending? Is that what you think acting is? Isn't it?" Joy snapped. "You memorize lines someone else wrote. You play dress up for a few months. collect your paycheck, and move on. At least I'm dealing with real issues that affect real people every single day. Charlize's voice dropped to a whisper, somehow more dangerous than shouting. Real issues? You mean like the time you spent 15 minutes mocking climate activists while misrepresenting the science? Or when you dismissed media bias by telling people to just get over it? Joy's jaw fell open. I never said that. You absolutely did. Charlize pressed, her voice now gaining strength. 3 weeks ago you called environmental protesters professional complainers. You told people worried about representation in media they were being too sensitive. I watched it myself. That's not what I meant. Joy stammered. But it's what you said. Charlize shot back. And that's the problem, isn't it? You say things without thinking about the impact. You forget your words carry weight. People take you seriously. The other hosts were now signaling desperately to producers to cut to commercial. But Joy wasn't done. Her voice trembled with rage. Don't you dare make me the villain here. At least I'm honest about my opinions. At least I don't hide behind some fake persona. Fake persona. Charlize laughed once, cold and humorless. Joy, your whole career is built on being the tell-it-like-it-is voice. But the truth is, you only tell it the way you see it, and your vision. She leaned forward slightly. It's painfully narrow. My vision is narrow. Joy's voice went shrill. I've been fighting for women's rights, for minorities, for working people since you were still posing for head. Fighting by talking, Charlize corrected. There's a difference between advocacy and commentary. When was the last time you did something beyond sitting at this table, giving your opinion? The line hit like a punch. Joy went pale, then crimson again. How dare you question my commitment to these causes? I'm not questioning your commitment, Charlize said, her calm returning, chilling the air. I'm questioning your methods. Do you actually want solutions, or do you just like being angry about the problems? That's ridiculous. Joy sputtered. Is it? Charlize countered. Because from where I sit, you've built a career on outrage, taking complex issues, reducing them to sound bites, and acting shocked when nothing changes. Sunny Hostin finally cut in, her voice urgent. Charlize, I think we might be getting off track. Are we though? Charlize turned to her, her tone momentarily soft. Isn't this exactly the conversation we should be having? Instead of nodding along, pretending everything is fine, maybe we should ask what we're really doing here. What we're doing, Joy interrupted, her voice shaking, is trying to have a civilized discussion. Something you clearly don't understand. Charlize turned back to her, her gaze ice cold. Civilized. Let's talk about civilized. Joy. Let's talk about the time you cut off a domestic violence survivor mid-sentence because you didn't like her politics, or when you've made guests feel attacked simply for holding a different perspective. Civilized. Joy's hands trembled. That never happened. It happened, Charlize said firmly. More than once. And the fact that you don't even remember proves just how little you consider the impact of your behavior on others. You're lying, Joy muttered, but her voice had lost its conviction. I'm not lying, Charlize replied. I'm just done pretending that everything on this show is fine, simply because it gets ratings. The silence that followed was deafening. Joy stared at her, face twisted with rage and something else recognition. Maybe. The other hosts looked ready to sink into their chairs. You know what? Joy finally hissed, her voice trembling with barely restrained fury. Maybe you should stick to your movie sets, where everyone has to pretend you're wonderful because you're the star. This is the real world where real people face real consequences. Charlize rose slowly from her chair, her movements measured and deliberate. You're absolutely right, Joy. This is the real world. And in the real world, when someone keeps crossing the line, eventually someone has to call them out. Joy shot to her feet so fast her chair slammed into the wall behind her. Call me out. You think you're calling me out? You come on my show, sit at my table, and think you can judge me. Your show? Charlize arched an eyebrow, her calmness in sharp contrast to Joy's fury. Last I checked, this was The View, not the Joy Behar show. And maybe that's the problem you've forgotten. This is meant to be a conversation, not a monologue. The other hosts signaled desperately toward the control room, but no one dared cut the feed. The cameras kept rolling. This was television lightning. Don't you lecture me about conversation. Joy spat, her voice trembling with rage. I've been having conversations on television since before you even knew what a camera was. Having conversations, or dominating them? Charlize asked softly. Because there's a difference between talking with people and talking at them. Joy's fists clenched tight at her sides. You privileged little princess. You don't know what it's like to fight for anything real. You live in your Hollywood bubble, surrounded by yes-men telling you how brilliant you are. And now you think that gives you the right to sit here and judge us. Charlize's jaw tightened, the first flash of true anger crossing her face. Privileged. Joy, you've sat at this table for years, using your platform to tear down women instead of lifting them up. You've created division where there could have been unity. And you want to lecture me about privilege. I create division. Joy's pitch rose, sharp enough to make the sound engineers wince. I fight for progress while you worry about your image and your brand deals. My brand deals. Charlize gave a cold laugh. Joy, I've donated more money to real causes in 1 year than you've probably earned in 5. And unlike you, I don't announce it every time I write a check. The accusation hit the air like smoke from a fire. Joy's face flushed, shifting through colors as she processed the blow. Are you saying I only care about money? She asked, her voice low and dangerous. I'm saying you care about being seen. Charlize replied evenly. There's a difference between doing good work and performing good work for an audience. Sarah tried to intervene, her voice strained. Maybe we could bring it back to the film. No. Joy cut her off sharply, eyes locked on Charlize. We're finishing this. You think I'm performative? You think I don't care about real issues? Let me tell you something. You self-righteous, sanctimonious, careful. Joy. Charlize's voice was calm, almost lethal. The cameras are still rolling. I don't care about the cameras. Joy screamed, her control snapping. You sit there in your designer clothes with your perfect little life and you judge people who actually get their hands dirty fighting for change. Get their hands dirty. Charlize's tone was incredulous. Joy, you sit behind a desk and yell at people. That's not dirty work. That's just loud work. At least I used my voice for something other than repeating lines someone else wrote. Joy snapped. Charlize froze. The insult landed hard, the air in the studio shifting. When she finally spoke, her voice was colder than steel. You're right, I do read lines other people wrote. But at least I understand what I'm saying. I don't just open my mouth and let words spill out with no thought to the damage they cause. Joy stepped closer, circling the table toward her. And what exactly is that supposed to mean? It means, Charlize said, standing firm. You've spent so long talking without thinking that you've forgotten how to listen. You've forgotten how to learn. You've forgotten that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you don't know everything. I don't know everything, Joy shrieked. You think you know more than me about politics, about social issues, about fighting for what's right. I think I know more about when to stop talking. Charlize said quietly. The simplicity of it hit harder than any insult. Joy faltered, her mouth open but no words forming. Get out, she finally whispered. Excuse me, I said get out. Joy shouted now, her voice cracking. Get off my show. Get away from my table. I don't have to sit here and take this from some Hollywood actress who thinks she's better than everyone else. Charlize looked around, the other hosts frozen, the audience silent, every camera locked on them. Then she turned back to Joy, who stood shaking, breathing ragged, her face twisted with fury. You're right, Charlize said softly. You don't have to listen to this. But maybe you should want to. She unclipped her microphone with steady hands. Thank you for having me, ladies. This has been very illuminating. Don't you dare walk away from me when I'm talking to you. Joy screamed. Charlize paused at the edge of the stage, microphone in hand, and glanced back with something like pity. Joy, that's exactly the problem. You're always talking but you never say anything worth hearing. The word struck Joy like a slap. For the first time in her long career, she was utterly speechless. Charlize turned and walked away, each click of her heels echoing through the stunned silence. The studio, once loud with chaos, was now so quiet it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Walk away from me. Joy finally found her voice, but instead of the commanding tone she intended, it cracked out as a desperate shout. We're not finished here. Charlize paused mid-step but didn't turn around. Actually, Joy, we've been finished for a long time, you just never noticed. Joy's face twisted. What is that supposed to mean? She took a few steps forward, closing the gap. This time Charlize did turn, her expression almost serene. It means this conversation, this entire dynamic you've created, her embodies everything. Broken about public discourse today. You don't want dialogue. Joy, you want to perform outrage for an audience. That's not true. Joy snapped, but her voice faltered. Isn't it? Charlize pressed. When was the last time you changed your mind on anything because of a discussion at this table? When was the last time you admitted you were wrong? Or learned something new instead of doubling down on what you already believe? Joy stood frozen, mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. For once, her anger couldn't shield her from the sting of the questions. Charlize whoopee cut in gently, desperate to steady the implosion. I think we all just get passionate about things we care about. Charlize inclined her head respectfully. Passion is wonderful, Whoopi, but passion without wisdom, that's just noise. And noise doesn't solve problems, it only makes them worse. Her eyes shifted back to Joy, who now looked adrift in the middle of her own stage. Joy, you sit at a table millions of people watch every day. You could use that platform to foster understanding. Instead, you use it to win arguments that don't even have winners. I do make a difference, Joy said weakly. Do you? Charlize's voice softened, but the precision of the words cut deep. Or do you just make noise? I've watched this show for years. I've seen you take vital issues and turn them into entertainment. I've seen you shrink complex problems into soundbites. I've seen you treat serious conversations like games to be won instead of challenges to be solved. The cameras caught every flicker of her tone, every tremor in Joy's body. The audience was silent, transfixed. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," Joy whispered, her bravado cracking. "You don't understand what it's like to always have to have an opinion, to always be ready with an answer, to always be on." For a moment, something softened in Sarai's eyes. "You're right. I don't know that pressure. But Joy, no one is forcing you to have an opinion about everything. You could choose to say, 'I don't know.' You could choose to listen instead of fill the air. That choice has always been yours." "That's not who I am," Joy murmured. "No," Sarai said quietly, "it's who you've become. But it doesn't have to be who you stay." She started toward the exit again, then paused once more, her words deliberate. "You asked me earlier what I know about fighting for what's right. Here's what I know. Real change doesn't happen under stage lights. It happens in communities, in voting booths, in honest conversations where people listen even when they disagree. Change happens when beliefs stop being performed and start being lived." Tears welled in Joy's eyes, streaking down her cheeks. "In messy black trails, you think you're so much better than me." She choked out. Cerise shook her head. "I don't think I'm better. I think I'm different, and maybe that difference is what you can't accept." She looked once more at the panel, at the audience, then back at Joy. "Ladies, thank you. And Joy, I hope someday you realize that being right isn't the same thing as being helpful." With that, Charlize Theron walked off the view set. The studio hung in stunned silence, broken only by the sound of Joy's uneven breathing. Her co-hosts sat frozen, their eyes downcast, unsure if stepping in would only make things worse. The audience had just witnessed something extraordinary, not a celebrity meltdown, but a raw, unflinching confrontation that blurred the line between entertainment and reckoning. Cerise had dismantled Joy's defenses with poise and precision, while Joy stood exposed, red-faced and trembling, her power momentarily stripped away. Finally, Whoopi cleared her throat. "We'll be right back after this commercial break," she said softly.